Can't draw? No problem. Napkins to the rescue. It just takes two. One for the background and one for the focal image. It's easy when you know how. Hi, Creative Katie Karen Burchill here. Welcome to my channel. So I'm going to be working on my 7x10 Canson Mixed Media Art Journal. And I'm starting off with the idea of using these lovely napkins. This one is called Magic Trees. And you've got these beautiful birch trees, and it comes in two sizes, the 5x5 and the 6.5 by 6.5. And the 5x5 works perfectly on the 7x10 going this way, and the 6x5 works good on the 9x12. So match whichever one to the size of substrate you're working on. Now this napkin, as well as the fox napkin, come from NinnysNapkins.com, and there's a link in the description box below. So here I'm sizing this out, and with the 9x12 I'd have to go vertically, portrait, and that's going to give me a lot of excess at the top. And so I'm going to work on the smaller 7x10 because of that. This is called Woodland Fox, and there are some lovely woodland creatures and other napkins that go with this, so you really want to go and check out NinnysNapkins.com. So I'm going to use that fox and the magic trees. So now that I've decided, I am going to remove the excess plies. I just get a little water on my fingers and just go up and down on the plies, and they come apart really easily. I know in the past I've used a piece of tape and that works, but this is even faster. So I'm just making sure I remove both of the excess plies. Now, I saved the excess plies. You can stamp on them. You can use them for texture on a page. You can use them to mop up your messes. So this napkin is going to be pretty much the entire background. It's going to be in a forest. It's going to be super simple. Now, I love the woodland creatures, but they aren't my typical focal image, and they aren't my typical color scheme. So it's a bit of a stretch for me. And as much as I do overpainting of flowers and I'm quite comfortable with that, doing animals isn't so much. Before I glue it down, I get the idea that maybe I'd like to put some blue in the background so that it looks like more sky peeking through. But instead of putting it on my background, I just grabbed a piece of scrap paper and I'm putting some blue on there. And then I'm going to lay the napkin over top just to get an idea of what it might look like. So test it out if you've got an idea. And right there I'm thinking, okay, I like it where it's the sky, but I don't want the trees to go blue. So bad idea. So I'm back to just gluing this down. And I want to go, there's kind of that straight edge on the left-hand side there. There's just that little bit extra, so I'm making sure that I go right to the top with it, so the trees go right off the page, and then I will paint in some of the grass down below. Just to make it easier to glue down, I'm cutting off the excess at this stage. And, you know, I will save this to use as collage papers on another project. Someone asked me if I iron my napkins. I typically don't. I guess if I was doing this on a canvas or if it was a commission piece, I might. If you're not a subscriber, please hit the subscribe button, click on the bell, and select the option to be notified of upcoming videos. If you've already set the notification for that, you might want to go back and unclick it and re-click it. Sometimes YouTube does strange things and you need to go and reset it. Thank you so much for helping me grow my channel. So I put some matte medium, fluid matte medium from Liquitex underneath, and then I'm putting it on top. And as is usually the case, the napkin becomes a little brighter once I do this. So at this point in the creative process, I really had no idea what I was going to do with the background. I was thinking, you know, I might just leave it as it is. This will be a quick, easy page. You know, not every page has to have everything thrown at it. So now that that is coated, I am going to prepare the focal image, this woodland fox. So first thing I'm going to do is rough cut it. I'm just going to cut off just around it because I am going to take off the plies and glue it onto the copy paper. The reason for that is if I just glued it right onto the background, the birch trees would show right through the fox. So I want to make that not happen, so I'm going to glue it onto copy paper. So I don't need to do water cutting. I can just cut it. This is a great, I just use recycled paper that's been printed on one side. And now I want to make sure that both the background and the focal image dry. Now we see that strip underneath. What I'm going to do is paint the grass at the bottom. I'm going to overpaint a little bit. Now this I know I can do quite successfully, so that's why I'm doing it. And I grab a fan brush, and that gives kind of a grass-like look to it. And I'm using a combination of Hooker's Green, Naples Yellow, and burnt umber. I want to make the bottom darker so it grounds the page. Now it's not really covering up that little strip along the bottom like I thought it would. I thought that was going to cover a little bit more, so I'm going to deal with that. And I'm just extending the grass a little bit. I'm making this my own. I'm using the napkins as the base. So here's how I'm solving that problem of that little strip below. I'm taking some gesso and just dabbing it on. It kind of fills in the gaps, preps the paper, and now I'm going to go again with the fan brush once that's dry and add some grass to my background. And it's kind of a dry brushing technique that I'm using here. I could also use a liner brush and just do flicks of grass. That would also work. I had thought about making this a winter scene and putting snow on the bottom. That would give a different look. But I wanted to add more color, so that's why I chose to add the grasses. I'm going to add a little bit of blue to the sky. But as I start to do it, I'm not really liking it. So I kind of stop and I'm going to think about it. when I'm doing something and I don't know what I'm doing, I do what I'm sure of and see how that looks. You know, you don't have to have everything figured out. And then I'm adding some of that Naples yellow into between the trees a little bit. And I'm really happy with the yellow. Wiping it back a little bit. Just adding a little bit more color to a very, very neutral background. So now I want to colorize this fox. I wanted this fox, I love the size of it. I love, how, the picture, but I wanted it to be more of a red fox. So I'm going to turn it red. I've got some red oxide on my brush on the, in that tube, and I'm added water to it, and then I'm just over painting. Now remember, when I glued that down, I put a coat of matte medium. That will seal the paper. And all the shading that's there is still going to be there. So we're using what the artist has given us, and I'm tweaking the color. And I'm just building it up as I go. I'm watering it down because I don't want it to be so opaque. I don't want to block off the shading that's already there. But I'm kind of unsure how to proceed with this. How much do I want to put? What other colors? So I'm mixing a little bit of gesso in there with the color just to make it a little, so you have lighter areas and darker areas. I'm looking at the original on the napkin just to get an idea. It looks like I know what I'm doing, but this is a little bit out of my element. I've overpainted and I feel very comfortable doing most flowers. But this is a little different. I think it's a little less forgiving, but you got to challenge yourself. And you know what? If it didn't turn out, I could easily just cut another fox out and do it. That's one of the reasons why I am colorizing it before I glue it onto the background. Because if it goes wrong, if it goes terribly awry, I can just redo it and I haven't wrecked my background. And now we have a red fox. I know once I'm done, once I cut out this fox, I will be shading, and that is also going to add a lot of dimension to the fox. I'm adding some brown, I'm adding, I'm just trying different things till it looks like what I want it to look like. So once it's dry, I'm cutting it out, and because it's fur, I'm just kind of getting it, I'm not cutting it in a straight line. but you want to make sure that it's perfectly dry before you cut it. And there we have the fox in the forest. Now looking at that blue right now, I'm thinking, I rather like the blue there. I didn't while I was creating it. Sometimes if you're uncertain about something, give it some time. Because this is glued onto copy paper, I'm going to grab the gel medium to glue it down. I just find gel medium works better once if what you're gluing down is a little bit thicker. So I'm putting a good coat underneath, and then of course I'll put a coat on top and glue it down. The napkin with the fox actually has two napkins looking to the left and two foxes looking to the left and two foxes looking to the right. So you could pick which one works best for your composition. Now I'm just adding some shading to the ground so it looks like the fox is on the ground. Adding some dimension there. I'm just using a combination of the burnt umber and the black. And now I'm going to shade around the fox. I'm using an angle brush and black acrylic paint, or a mixture of the black and the brown, and I'm shading the fox here. First I'm doing it on the picture, and then I'll go off on the background right beside. If you don't want to shade this way, you can use a Stabilo All pencil or a charcoal pencil. Just remember that those aren't permanent, so if you're going to put any wet medium afterwards, you have to be careful. You might have to spray it with a fixative before. And I'm using the shading that the artist of the napkin used. I can still see that, and I'm looking at the original on the napkin as well. And here I'm going on the background, and this really makes the fox stand out against the background. In real life, this page took about 40 minutes. It was a quick, easy page. And right now I'm quite happy with how it's turned out, because when I started I really wasn't sure how it was going to go. But you know, you got to take a challenge every once in a while. So then I decided I'm going to edge the page with that same shading technique, but you could use charcoal if you'd like. And now I'm shading, I decide I'm going to shade one side of some of the trees. I'm thinking that that was going to make them stand out, and that's exactly what happened. I'm loving that look, so I continue. And that's what I mean. You got to try something, and then if it works, if you like it, then keep going with it. This really makes these trees stand out. I didn't do all the trees, I just did a few of them, and those ones just suddenly looks like they jumped forward. Then I decide I'm going to do the other side of the tree. Like I said, I'm figuring it out as I go along. I think I might use that same napkin, that Magic Trees napkin, and maybe combine it with some birds or something. At the end, I'm going to compare what I ended up with the original napkin. Now I'm adding some white acrylic paint, and I'm just going over the white areas of the birch tree just to add more white to it and brightness to the page after I did all that shading. This is also adding some texture to the page. I didn't know what kind of sentiment to put, so I grabbed this one from my Embrace Possibility, and instead of using the entire quote, I'm just cutting out two words. I'm cutting out the word embrace and the word life. And I like how they're on a black background. That makes it stand out against my very busy kind of background. In a perfect world, I might have made this a little bit bigger, but I'm all about using what's in my stash instead of creating more. Now, the little bit of yellow that I had in there, I was really liking how it brightened the page, so I'm adding a little bit more, turning this into more of a sunset kind of time. It adds warmth to the page. And kind of knocks back the birch trees that I didn't bring to the forefront. What do you think of the addition of the yellow? Was it better before or after? And then I'm just going to glue down the sentiment with the fluid matte medium. I want to add some of that red oxide color to the background, so I thin some paint and I splatter with my fan brush. Just introduces a little bit of that color from the fox to the rest of the page, and it ties everything together. And then I grab some yellow oxide, thin that down, and I'm going to splatter that just to add a little bit something else. If you don't want the fox to get splattered, you could have used the sheet that I took off, the excess ply. There is a close-up. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a few things. Here is the original napkin, and you can see the difference my overpainting did. And there's the original fox and my red fox. Thanks so much for joining me. Until next time, go get creative.